And we're back. All right, cool. So, where were we? Is your sister an atheist?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, my brother is an atheist too. Yeah. He's not like I don't think he strongly believes it, but he's like, yeah, I don't really think there's a God. I think my dad has become more and more non-religious over time as well.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And to some degree, my mom as well. But then she also believes in like horoscopes and astrology and stuff. So
yeah, I mean that's a different thing.
Yeah, that's like anyways, that's a whole nother topic.
But like to
I want to make
continue,
sure we don't have like too much time. So
right. To make sure, or why am I saying that? Like to answer the full question, because that's like what it was like in Dallas. Then I went to school to college in Boston, and the first thing I wanted to do is like I want to get involved in like student activism, like atheist activism. Join like the secular group and I found out that there was a secular society, and so like I went and like we went to the activity fair. I went to the activity fair, and like that was the first table I sat at. Like I looked at the big list of things. I was like, okay, I went over to that table, and when I got there, it was literally a dude in a cape, like literally a dude in a cape, like a big like.
You're telling me Batman's an atheist? No, he's just a greedy capitalist. Go on.
But he like I went up and I was like, hi, like is this a secular society? And he was like, yeah. And he had like I forget exactly what card game it was, but he just like laid out this card game. He was like, let's play this game. And I was like, maybe later, but like so tell me a little about the secular society. Like I was like really excited. I was like, this is Massachusetts, it's like more liberal and like less religious and stuff like that. So I was like really excited. And he was just like yeah, no, it's cool, like we have discussion groups and whatnot, but anyway, like let's play this game. And so like that was like it. That was like the only representation that was there. And I was like, okay, this is a little weird. I went to like the first discussion meetings and whatnot, and it was basically like it was just a couple of random people getting together and like having discussions that were really cool a lot of the time. Discussing kind of like life's big questions, but like from the point of view of there not being a God. But like it was not what I was expecting it to be at all. It was tiny. I thought like this would be a huge group. But what I realized as time went on was that like in Massachusetts, because it's so much less religious, being an atheist is less of a big deal. So people are gonna identify themselves as like a lot less, which makes sense when you think about it like that. Like now, after having lived in Massachusetts for 7 years, I barely think of myself like as an atheist, especially not the way that I did in Texas. Like it's just. Yeah, it's like I guess a part of me, but it's not like as big of a thing as it was here.
I guess that's like kind of the case for any minority. Like when like you hit some critical percentage, like above some threshold, then like it's like represented enough to where like those minority people don't have to stick together to like like
and don't feel the need to
don't feel like then it's just like oh yeah whatever. Interesting. Okay. We talked about family a little bit, but is there anyone in your family that hasn't responded well to you being an atheist?
Well, my dad was an atheist, which I didn't know until like I told him that I was. My mom, I guess, is agnostic. She's a little spiritual, but like not like she doesn't believe in like organized religion. So they were fine. My grandparents, my Mexican grandmother. Wasn't ever happy about that, but it wasn't like a super huge deal. Like she would talk to me about like, oh, like you need some spiritual guidance or whatnot. But like she believed that I was a good person, and would like pass on like she was like an interesting like kind of like Christian Buddhist hybrid, kind of thing. And so she would talk to me about like her spirituality and like try to like. She did really wish that I did believe in a higher power. Like that was something that I don't want to say irritated. It's something that bothered her, but like it wasn't ever like a big deal with her.
Okay.
And with my great grandparents, I mean, I didn't really tell them.
Yeah.
So
that makes sense. I think in my family, my dad growing up. Okay. Like I said, the most religious person in my family is my grandma on my dad's side. So I think that rubbed off on my dad a lot. So he was like the second most religious in the immediate family, until recently. But when I like mentioned it to my dad, I think at this point he had like already kind of like lost a lot of his beliefs, by then. And like I want to say my mom is like similar to your mom in that she's like spirit at this point, that there was like growing up she probably was like a stronger believer, but at this point she's just like kind of spiritual and she like believes in a higher power. So yeah, my parents didn't respond too badly. My mom still thinks I'm like weird, like that I don't believe in a higher power, but like whatever. On my mom's side, my grandpa, I've just like never brought it up because he doesn't ever like really discuss religion. My grandma is actually weirdly not religious. Like she was the first person in my family, I think, who was like kind of contemplative of that. Did I say that right? Contemplative? Contemplative? I don't know.
Contemplative, yeah.
She was like the first one who was like, I remember I was in India for like a summer vacation in like middle school or high school or something, probably middle school. And I remember like bringing up something about God to her. And she said something along the lines of like, yeah, I wouldn't take it so literally. I would just think about it more generally. I mean, just like, I believe in humanity more than I do in like any specific God or something. So, yeah, I'd say that's like, I don't know how much of an impact that had on like me becoming an atheist, but like that was interesting. And then my grandma on my dad's side, she is just like bewildered. She's like, she's not mad. She's not like she's not like upset, but she just cannot like she just cannot fathom how it's even possible. And like, me, and then like, I'm sure my brother will like say something along those lines and she's just gonna be like, what the hell is going on? So yeah, I think, but overall, I think both of us have been pretty lucky. Sorry. Yeah, but I think overall, both of us have been pretty lucky to have like family members who are generally like accepting of our non-religious beliefs.
Yeah, I don't think either of us had like a time, like there are a lot of non-religious people who like kind of had to like come out to their families. So yeah, it's a big deal. But yeah, I don't think that was a particular thing for either of us. So. Right.
Yeah, so that's good. Okay, and then so now let's talk about like religion more in depth and morality and all that. But we're not gonna go through like every single like, oh, why does this glass exist if God doesn't exist? Like, we're not gonna do that. We're just gonna be talking about like, well, let's jump into it. How can you be moral without being religious?
That's a question that this kid in my AP Econ class my senior year tried to ask me and pick a fight with me about, like a literal fist fight with me. Like, I don't understand it at all because he like came up to me like, and he sat next to me, unfortunately. But he was like, hey, I heard you an atheist. I was like, yeah. And he was like, do you expect me to believe that you can be a moral person without believing in a higher power? I was like, yes. And he like stands up, like literally he like just like stands up like this and puffs out his chest like they do in cartoons. I was like, I've never seen someone do this in real life. He's like, you want to fight? I was like, no. He was like, oh. It was just like, I can't.
He's like, let me introduce you to heaven and hell.
That'd be amazing. Like, he was just an interesting character. But, yeah, there were a lot of people, and, like, I actually, there were, like, a lot of, like, Facebook discussions that I would get into back in the day about this, in which, like, people were saying, hey, like, how can you have morality? How can you have a moral compass without belief in a higher power? And something that I've always thought is, like, if the only reason that you do good things is because you're afraid of punishment or because you want a reward, that doesn't make you a good person, right? Mm-hmm. Like, that ultimately means that you're, like, that's just self-interest. And I think that there are some people, like, definitely out there who need an amount of self-interest, who need, like, incentives and whatnot to act well, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. So, like, I'm not going to say that religion is always a bad thing, and we'll get to that later maybe.
Do you think that, like, kind of, yeah, never mind. Just go.
Okay.
We don't have that much time.
But like, I think that we can derive like moral principles from just like, what do we want people to do to us? Like, how does people mistreating us make us feel?
Right.
And like with just having basic empathy,
Yeah.
knowing that hey, maybe we shouldn't do things that we don't like having done to other people. I mean, and there's a lot of nuances, right? Because some people like in certain situations want to be treated this way, whereas other people would hate being treated that way.
Right.
So like, treat others how they want to be treated, I think is like a better way of like, going about things. And even that's nuanced because you can't always give everything and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But like, there's just like having like a basic sense of empathy and like wanting to contribute. And like, you can argue that this is self-interested too. I mean, I would argue that like technically everything that anyone does is ultimately self-interested, but that's a whole nother story. But like, the fulfillment that people get from helping people out, from like doing things for people, from making sacrifices. Like, there are so many times when I would not spend $10 on a meal for myself, but I will gladly, get someone like a $50 present,
right.
or like, just like lend someone $50 and not even expect it back. Like, I am much more generous giving money to other people than I am to myself. Because like that just like makes me feel good. And like, it's not like I perfectly lay this out where I'm like, yes, well, it's got to be at least $15 to someone I care about on at least a level 3 basis. Like, no, not like that. It's just like, it's just a natural human thing. And sure, some people don't have that as much, but like, it's, to me, I can't fathom how people can't fathom that you can't be moral without
being religious, right?
Being religious.
Yeah.
Thumbs up for science, but yeah.
Yeah. So one thing I want to mention is that Sebastian was talking about how, like in Boston, there's like a pretty big number of non-religious people. I kind of experienced something similar here in Texas in that I went to like engineering, I studied engineering in college. So I think people who are like more mathematical and scientific tend to be non-religious, would you say?
Yeah, like that's definitely a stereotype, and I think there's a lot of truth to it.
Right.
And I'm not 100% sure why that would be.
Yeah.
Because I definitely don't think that science and religion are completely incompatible. But like.
Fair, yeah. But I think that there's like, I'd say that there's at least a correlation between like more like STEM fields and being non-religious.
Yeah. There definitely seems to be one. Maybe that's
maybe I mean we could be just like, pulling that out of our ass.
From my experience too, like having gone to some college, like there was people from all across the country went, and world actually went to this place, but like there were relatively few religious people. Not to say they didn't exist, because absolutely they did, but like the far majority of people were non-religious. Yeah,
and I went to there were like one of the most religious people I remember was this guy who I met like at like a math and science academy that I briefly attended. And like, I mean, I remember this guy like saying like God bless you every time he like, instead of saying like bye, he would say like God bless you. And that was like, okay. But so there are like definitely still really, really religious people in like STEM and stuff, of course. Like the Bill Nye and who's the other guy? He has like the debate, something Ham. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I remember what you're talking about. I don't remember.
Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, there's very clearly like you can be scientific and religious at the same time, and I think that like as long as like science is your primary mechanism for understanding the world, then I think we can talk talk from like a common place. I think
that's an interesting way to put it. Yeah.
If religion is your like primary lens with which you view the world, then it's like hard for me to like kind of like it. Well, I mean, I'll still be friends with like people. Like it's just like I don't think we'll like exactly click. There's definitely going to be like a little bit of a yeah.
But it's interesting the two things that you said though. You said like if science is the primary mechanism by which you understand the world, and then you said if religion is the lens by which you see the world. I don't think those are mutually exclusive. I think that religion can be the primary lens with which you see the world, but science can be the primary way that you know and understand the world.
Okay, that's fair.
Like, yeah. But I see what you're saying. Like, and that's one of the things. Like, even if the secular society that I was a part of, in college ended up like being like largely a discussion group, about like life, universe, like big questions and morality and blah blah blah. Like there was it was all kind of unified by the fact that we were coming from the point of view of there not being any type of higher power that would give guidance to any of these things. That is ultimately bestowing us with the meaning of life. No, like we eschewed that. I don't know how to pronounce that word. And we're like, that aside, like, just like assuming there's not a God, what would the meaning of life be? How can we derive moral principles or things like that? And so like coming at it from that lens, like I think that ended up like having a lot of like really good discussion. But at the same time, like you can also have really amazing discussion with people who have completely different lenses, who do see everything through religion. And like so like one other thing that ended up kind of being more my thing in college was there was an interfaith discussion group where like basically it was like a weekly group. Like they decided these groups at the beginning of every year, and most people only did this for 1 year. I did it for 3 years because I was like so into it. But like we just have like really deep discussions every week for like an hour, and people from like all over. And I was the token atheist in my group whenever I was there. But like it was always so amazing to like be talking about these things, especially after I discussed these with other atheists. To see things from these other points of view, and like maybe not everyone's into that, that's fine, but I thought that was really cool from my point of view. And I mean for myself, like I have made most of my friends for sure have also been non-religious people, but some of my close friends, like the first person that I dated and was like really really close to in high school was very religious, and I was openly like very atheistic at the time. She was like a very devout Christian, it still is, and we're still great friends, and so like that. Honestly, even though by that point I wasn't anti-theistic anymore, to the point where I had been before, that really like opened my eyes to a lot of the good that religion could do. Because I saw how it helped her through her depression, her anxiety, and things like that. And so like, for me, like I don't think maybe it's a little more challenging to make connections like through that, but like I think that anyone like even you with an open enough mind, which you do have, you would be able to more than you might expect, have like really good clicks with people who are religious.
Fair, yeah, and I think I'm perfectly like willing, and I actually want to like engage with people who are religious. I want to not make this like an echo chamber where I'm just like surrounding myself with people who have like the exact same beliefs as me. Like, do I think that anyone's really going to convince me to not be an atheist? I highly doubt it. But like, I'm like, I try. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But that being said, like, I just, it wouldn't be my like first preference, right? Like to be, like if I could choose like two people who had very similar personalities and one was atheist and viewed the world in a similar way as I did, then, it's going to be that person who I'm obviously going to gravitate towards. And just summing up the point that I was making earlier was that as I progressed through high school, college, like the number of non-religious people seemingly increased, and I don't know if that's like more of like a cultural shift in general, or if it's just like by that point in your life, like into adulthood, you've like really cemented your lack of belief or whatever. But that's just something I like noticed. Yeah. So okay, so we talked about morality, and I think we kind of touched on the next question, which was how do you view religious people, and then that leads me into the next question, which is do you think there's a world without any religion in the future, or like very minimal? Do you think that?
Yes, if humanity becomes extinct, which doesn't seem unlikely at this point. I mean, like we will be at some point.
Right.
I think that's the only way that religion would be wiped out.
Okay. I don't necessarily mean like wiped out.
That was a violent way to put it.
Yeah,
I meant like that religion will cease to exist.
Right. I think so. I think it's unlikely, but I do think it's possible. And the evidence that I have to support that is like, you look at places like Scandinavia, and like they have a small population, but like a large number of them are like non-religious. Like a majority of the population is non-religious. So.
But yes, yeah. Sorry,
Yeah.
continue.
And like, yeah, now can we apply that to the entire world? Maybe not. And I think like industrialization also ties into this. Like the more industrial a country is, or like.
I don't think industrial per se.
I think like more social democratic places will end up being more non-religious.
I think that where there's less hardship.
Yes.
There is less
right.
religion.
Fair.
And like, yeah, I totally see what you're saying. I think it is very likely that we'll end up at a point where eventually, like, assuming that humanity doesn't wipe itself out soon, which I don't know. But, like, you know, if humanity did continue to exist for 200, 300 years, you know, hopefully at some point we'll have, like, worldwide socialism and, like, you know, we'll greatly reduce the amount of poverty and injustice and racism and awful things in this world. I do think that we would eventually get to a point where the majority of the world's population would not be religious. But I do not think we would ever get to the point where nobody is.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe I should have rephrased the question that way. But yeah, I can agree with that. Okay. All right. Moving on to the next question. What if you're wrong? What if there is a heaven and hell?
I get that a lot. It's like the whole thing about like people trying to warn you if you're going to hell or not. It's interesting. 'Cause yeah, I get that a lot. I might be wrong. Like I'm willing to admit that. Like, you know, even though I'm an atheist and that I actively believe that there's not a God. I mean, it's a belief, right? Like I don't have proof or evidence of this. It's just what I feel is the most likely thing. So like in a way, like you can compare that to there being a religion, right? Except like, you know, this doesn't really affect my day-to-day life or things like that. It just seems unlikely to me. But like anyway, you know, I don't like just like looking at science and the things that we can know to be true. There doesn't seem to be a lot pointing toward there being a heaven, toward there being a hell, or any sort of afterlife. What I believe after we die is that we're just not conscious anymore of anything ever again. Someone, I don't remember who this was, said, remember what it was like before you conceived? It'll be a lot like that.
Yeah.
And I like that.
Yeah.
Because you're just not going to be conscious of anything.
Right.
But the reason that this sucks because we'll never know if we're right.
Yeah, I know. Because if we're right, we're just gone. We're just dust.
We don't get like that. Like, ha ha ha.
Yeah, I told you. Checkmate, theists.
Whereas, like, yeah, theists or people who do believe in there being an afterlife would get that if they're right. So that's kind of unfair, honestly. Yeah. That's oppressive.
Yeah. My take on it is that like if there is like, bro, I'm going to hell and I'm going fucking hard, you know, and I'm taking over. So
that's the thing, because like it's so like I refuse to actually consider the possibility of there being a God that's somehow like, you know, so almighty and you know, well-meaning that it would send someone to burn for all eternity.
For all eternity,
not believing in something that there's no proof of.
That's like a really petty ass God.
and like the thing that people have always said to me, like, because like, you know, I've had like so many like discussions about this with like religious people, and like had a lot of fun, but they're like, well, you know, that's like God having mercy on you, because like if you know, shun God that much, you would hate being near him even more. No, I wouldn't. Like if there's an actual God, like, dude, like, we gotta have a chat. Like, that, that would be, like...
Why you acting like a bitch, God? Come on, like, don't take it personally. Like, send a miracle down, like, every couple days to, like, keep shit fresh, you know? Like...
Well, and that's another thing. It's like, you know, if a miracle did happen, would we believe it?
No, right? I think we would look at it first, try to explain it through science.
Coincidence.
Right, and then if we couldn't explain it through science, then it would just, like, sit on the back burner, like, in a state of purgatory until like we could figure out like what it was, hopefully in the future. But if not, like, I mean if like a miracle did happen, like, I mean,
yeah, like if God like opened up the sky and was like, Sebastian, I do exist,
right,
stop with this stupid atheism crap, I'd be like, oh no, I'm going insane.
Yeah, I'd be like, Sebastian, you need to go to a psychiatrist.
Like, and so that's a very valid point, right? Like, what could make me believe in God? I don't know, maybe nothing. And like, maybe that is kind of a shortcoming. I don't know. But whatever the case, like, if I die and like there actually is a God, like, I would be completely willing to accept that. Like, I would be totally willing to admit that I'm wrong. So like, you know, I would love to go to heaven because, I mean, I guess who wouldn't? I don't know. Honestly, the idea of heaven kind of freaks me out because, like, if you were just, like, for all eternity, that's a long time.
Like I don't wanna like I'm not wanting to be alive forever.
But I mean, people say, well, it's not like that. And it doesn't feel like eternity. It's just like, you know, a state of like wonderfulness and, you know, I get that. Like you can explain your way like around that and whatnot. It doesn't seem very plausible to me.
Yeah.
And so like, yeah, I don't believe in that. But like if I am wrong, I hope to God that like they wouldn't send me to hell for just not believing in something that there's no proof of. Like I refuse to consider that as being a real possibility because it would just be so unjust. And like if that does happen, like you and I, we're staging a rebellion. We're staging a revolution in the depths of hell to overthrow this petty tyrant god.
No, like for real, like okay, another point. It's like okay, but what if you pick the wrong religion? Like, you know, like the person asking us that question, I mean, like, I guess I'm asking you that question, but this is a question that's commonly asked by religious people to non-religious people. What if you're wrong? Okay, like, what if you pick the wrong religion? Like, you know, there's like fucking 20 of them. Like 20 like major ones.
Yeah.
And like, you know, like billions of like, you know, probably like every person has their own little
exactly.
Like flavor of their own religion, right? Like, what if your exact flavor is like wrong? Then you're going to hell too, right? Like it just sounds stupid.
Like this whole concept, like I think that if there is a God that's out there, it's not a God of any of the major religions. I think that if there is a God, probabilistically it's not one that's believed in by anyone.
Right, or like the characteristics of that God are probably like, you know, like a mismatch of religion, like whatever. But I mean, I think that's like a moot point, anyways. Like whatever.
Sure. There's a lot of you know, what if you just happen to be born in the wrong place and so you don't believe in that religion? Like how is that just? You know, and there's also that old like, you know, parable of like the Inuit that a missionary visits, and like they, you know, this missionary is like with the Inuits and living with them and spreading the word of God and Jesus. And one of the Inuits says, like, would I have gone to hell if I didn't know about God?
Ooh.
And the missionary says, well, no. And the Inuit says, well, why did you tell me?
What's your fucking problem, dog? Like, leave me alone.
So, you know, that, I mean, that's just a parable. It probably didn't actually happen.
Yeah.
But, like, it's a question worth considering. Like, what is the point of that?
Right.
And, like, people who are religious, who believe in this, they do have, like, a full list of things, but it doesn't seem very fair to me the way that I see it. Also, my mom was calling.
Okay. Well, luckily now we actually covered all the questions that we were trying to get through. So, again, if you enjoyed that, please like the video, comment with your thoughts, your experiences, whether you're religious or not. I'm sure we'd love to read them. That sounds bad. We would love to read them. Thank you, Sebastian, for being on the video. Looking forward to hopefully doing like a part 2 or something, like talking about other topics.
There's a lot we can go into.
Yeah, exactly. But that should give like a pretty good overview. So if you like the video, like, comment, and subscribe. And thanks for watching. Peace.
Checkmate, atheists.
Checkmate, atheists.